Guys, Michael here. Decided to start a new video series called Cooking with Michael. This week, the first thing we're going to cook is going to be steamed boiled crabs. My father-in-law is celebrating his 84th birthday, I think it is, and we're having steak tonight. So I figured, hey, let's do it right and go catch some crabs, steam up some crabs, have steak and crabs. So let me show you what we caught last night. So we got home and last night, and I decided I wanted to go crabbing. So I took my son and one of his friends up. This is what we came up with. You see a mess of them down there. You see the one big one down in the corner. He's obviously the alpha male. You see a mess of them down there. They're all still alive. So we're going to let them sit in here till it's time to cook them up. And we're going to steam them up right, and I'm going to walk you right through how to do that. Okay guys, we're about ready to get started here. I've got everything put together for the crab boil. First thing I want to start with, of course, is the pan here. I've got it filled with water up to the boil line that I showed you earlier. Another key ingredient you want to make sure you have, of course, is Old Bay seasoning or any other seafood seasoning that you choose. I particularly like Old Bay. You want to have a 40 of your favorite beer. If you don't want to make it your favorite beer, make it a beer that you don't mind putting in the water to boil the crabs in. And then of course you need a little cup. And the reason you need a cup, the role that it plays in this crab boil is you always want to taste the beer before you pour it into the water to boil the crabs, because you want to make sure that it fits the purpose and is up to standards to boil your crabs in. So make sure that if you have a 40, you also have a cup. Another thing, you want to make sure you have a good pair of tongs here, and the reason for that is we're going to be taking the crabs out of the cooler and putting them into the pot one by one. We don't want to just take the cooler and dump the crabs in there because the crabs have been in there for about, I don't know, 12, 15 hours, maybe 20 hours. They pooped all in there and peed and all kinds of crab stuff that they do. So you don't want all that excrement getting into your crab pot. So instead of just pouring the crabs in there, we're going to get a nice pair of tongs here, and we're going to take the crabs out one by one and put them in the water. So here's the grill. We got the burner there ready to roll. We're going to put the pot right here, and then once the water starts boiling, then we'll put the crabs in. Now, some people like to put the pot on there, put the crabs in there, and turn the heat on and let the crabs cook as the water gets hot. I recommend that you don't do that, simply because the crabs, if they're in the water for too long, they'll use up all of the oxygen that's in the water, and once the oxygen is gone, the crabs can no longer live, and you don't want the crabs to die before they start cooking. I know that sort of seems a little bit weird to say, but you definitely don't want to have your crabs in water. That's why when I showed you earlier the crabs were not in water, they were just in the cooler, because if you make the mistake of keeping your crabs in water and you're not constantly feeding the water oxygen, then the crabs eventually use all the water all the oxygen that's in the water. They end up dying, and once they die in that type of environment, they start to deteriorate inside a lot quicker than what you probably would imagine. So once you catch the crabs, you want to keep them dry, keep them in a cooler, keep them in a pan, and then don't pour them into the water, don't put them into the water until the water has started to boil. Okay, so we've got all of our ingredients. Let's get the pot rolling, and then I'll explain what happens once we're ready to put the crabs in. Talk to you later. Guys, we got the pot on here. We got the burner going. We got the pot on there. The burner's flame is really not that high, so it's going to take a little while for the water to start to boil. But I've already opened the beer here. We're ready to pour that in. And notice I've got the cup filled here to taste the beer to make sure that our crabs are going to enjoy it once they're cooked in it. So let me go ahead. I'm going to pour the beer in here. Notice that one thing I want to point out is when you pour the beer in there, some people have a preference to pour the beer in first and then the water. Some people have a preference of putting the water in and then the beer. I like putting the water in first because when I pour the beer in, it cuts down on the amount of foam that the beer generates once you pour it in there. Some people like to call it beer head, but I found that by pouring the beer in there after the water's already been put into the pot, cuts down on the amount of foam generated. Next, we want to put in our Old Bay seasoning here. There's no specified amount, just a matter of how much you want to put in there to fit your needs. I don't know how much I'm just going to pour in there. So let me see here. Let me open up the big thing. All right, so let me pour some in here. Okay, I probably poured. Let's see, I got a 6-ounce can. I probably poured half of it in there. So what we've got here, guys, we've got our pot. We've got the water up to the boil line. We've added a 40-ounce beer just to give a little bit of flavor, and we've topped it off a little bit with some Old Bay seasoning. Like I said, I've got a 6-ounce can here. I put in 3 ounces. Some people would like to boil potatoes and carrots and stuff like that with their crabs. Normally I would do that, but I don't really have a lot of crabs tonight. I've only got about 15 or 16. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but considering it's just going to be my father-in-law and myself eating the crabs because nobody else likes them, that's plenty for us. So I'm not going to go through the painstaking task of adding vegetables and stuff to boil with the crabs. So we've got everything going now. Once the water boils, I'll come back on. I'll show you how to take the crabs out of the cooler and everything and put them in the water, and we'll get this thing rolling. I forgot to point something out when you're about the beer. When you're pouring the beer in there, naturally it's going to foam up at the bottom, and it's going to leave you probably anywhere from 1 inch, 2 to 3 inches of foam in the bottom. You won't be able to get it all out of the bottle. And so what I found is if you just sit the beer down, just let it sit for about a minute, 2 minutes, the foam goes back into liquid form. But you can take that, pour it back into the pot there, and you maximize the usage of your beer. The other thing I want to point out about the beer is anytime you use beer in a boil, you come into a dilemma because once you pour it into the cup and you taste it, then you have to make the decision as to whether you really want to use your beer into the boil or if you just want to go ahead and drink the beer. So considering I bought some new shock tops today, I got plenty of beer in the fridge, got me a cup right here. I decided to go ahead and let the crabs feast on it and use the beer in this bowl. So there you have it, guys, a tip on the beer. Once you pour the beer out, let it sit for a little while, allow the foam to go back into liquid form, pour the rest of the beer into the pan, good to go. This is what the water looks like with all the seasoning and stuff in it. I know it doesn't look too appealing, but you can tell it's starting to get to the point where it's ready to boil. Once it's down, then once it starts boiling, then we'll get all the crabs in there and we'll go to town. So I'll talk to you later. Okay, guys, as you can see here, it looks like that the water is about to start boiling. It's heating up a little bit. It's starting to boil just a little bit. So it's time to do the crab thing, get the crabs out. So what we're going to do is get our tongs here, get our pan over here. Then we're going to adjust this here so we can see the cooler. Where's the cooler? There's the cooler. And then we're going to talk about and show you how to take the crabs out. So we've got the cooler out here. Notice that I had this here. That was just to keep the lid ventilated. So we're going to reach down in there, grab a crab. Oh, bitch! Damn. I dropped my tongs, man, because it snapped me with it. It stabbed me with its claw. So hold on, let me go get another pair. All right, guys, if you saw the last segment, I got bit by a crab claw. There's the result there. But I've got all the crabs in the pan here. If you look at this one, this big one right here is the one that reached up and got me. So he's pretty big, probably one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. But I've got them all in the pan now. Let go, there you go. He's still fighting. If you look over here, got the pan going on. Got a little bit of boiling action down there. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the crabs in there. And let's get this party started, okay? But so hold on. So notice we got them all in the pot here. And what will happen is the pot will just sit right down into the water. They'll boil right up. Once they turn a nice pinkish orange color, that means they're done. So here we go. Notice that the crabs are in there. You can't really see them, of course, because they're underwater. The water's boiling a little bit. So we'll let them boil probably for about, I don't know, man, 5 or 10 minutes till they turn orange. Notice they're already turning orange a little bit. Probably won't take that long. See how orange they're turning. Once they get a complete orange color, then we'll take them out and they'll be ready to go. So we're almost done here. We've got everything going now. I just got to wash the cooler, and then probably by the time I'm done washing the cooler out, the crabs will be done. So we'll check back in with you a little bit later. All right, guys. It's been a little while. You know, if you've ever cooked, if you've ever fried chicken or fried French fries or something like that, you know that they're done by when they start floating. So if you look over here into the pot, you can see that the crabs started to float a little bit. Notice how orange they've turned. So they're definitely done. So what we're going to do is go ahead and take those out. Now you got to remember, you know, I didn't put them in there until the water started to boil, and it had a nice boiling action going on. The water was very, very hot, so it didn't take long at all, man. They've probably been in there probably not even 5 minutes. So what we're going to do is go ahead and take them out, and I'm going to set them on top of the on top of the cooler and let the excess water drain down into the cooler, and then we'll go from there, and it should be good to eat. So there you go, guys. The way you boil crabs: fill your boil line up with water, put in about a 40-ounce beer after you've had a swallow or two, of course. Dump some Old Bay seasoning in there, if you like Old Bay. If you don't, whatever seasoning you prefer. If you want to put in vegetables and stuff, you're definitely going to have to boil your vegetables probably about 20-25 minutes longer than you're going to boil the crabs, and the crabs probably the last thing you put in there. But we didn't have a lot of crabs today, so I just boiled the crabs. And then, hey man, make sure your water's hot. Take the crabs out of the cooler, put them in the pot, put the pot in the boiling water, let them boil for about 5 minutes depending on the temperature of the water. Once the crabs turn a nice glowing orange color, maybe a little bit of pinkish in there, they start floating in the water, the crabs are done. So there you go. Cooking with Michael, boiling blue crabs on a Saturday night. Talk to you soon.